what is the internet if not a cesspool for random people's opinions? I had big feelings. Many a big feeling. Many a thought. What the hell does that mean? It's all about the journey, not the destination. So here's why that's problematic. I don't want to go in there. I'm scared. We're not gonna have a stroke. Help. Am I crazy? The AI of it all. It's being imprinted into your mind.
Like you're in a sci-fi horror.
All alleged. I feel crazy. I fear you have AI psychosis. Oh, yes. Give it to me. I will.
Gladly.
What the is going on here? Hi, I'm Tim, and before you say anything, yes, I am wearing this hat because I have a receding hairline and I'm having a bad hair day, but also to support #RB Rebecca Black. So chilling in the front seat, in the back seat, I'm driving, cruising, fast lane, switching lanes with a car by my side. Yeah. Today's topic is actually why I wanted to make a YouTube channel in the first place, because I went to the Zagreb Festival of Lights and I had big feelings. Many a big feeling. Many a thought that I wanted to put onto the internet, because what is the internet if not a cesspool for random people's opinions? So I just want to do my part and contribute. I am planning on releasing more videos. Shocker. I didn't just make a YouTube channel for one video. Don't think you get rid of me so easily. My next video, I'm planning on it being a overview of who I am, kind of my motivation for wanting to make a YouTube channel. I mean, this video was the main motivation. And then I was like, wait, I could make something out of this, like a little project, like a video project series thing. So, Zagreb, Festival of Lights. Wow, what an experience. So if you are unfamiliar with Zagreb, or if you know just a little bit about it, maybe something that you do know is that there's a lot of museums in Zagreb, like Zagreb, city of museums, and not just any museums, super rando, quirky little museums. Like I think the most well-known is probably the Museum of Broken Relationships, but then they also have like Museum of Chocolate, Museum of Neckties. Did you know neckties come from Croatia? Hey, shout out Croatia. Thank you. Also, Zagreb's the capital of Croatia. I was really excited when it just so happened to be that I was in town for work during the Festival of Lights. So it was like perfect. I get to experience another artistic aspect to the culture, to the city. I'm very excited to see what the Festival of Lights is all about. So they had 20 different installations of varying kinds. I was really excited to explore. One thing that we all kind of observed, one of the first things that we observed, was who the Zagreb Festival of Lights is for, which primarily is families with children. Lots of the exhibits were either like literal playgrounds that were decorated with lights or had some kind of element of play. There was an installation that featured a bunch of swings. There were also a lot of projections that included bright, colorful, animated characters that would definitely appeal to children. Lots of children running around enjoying the art, which I think is amazing. I give my highest kudos, not highest, and we'll get into why, but I give moderate kudos to the Festival of Lights in Zagreb for creating a free public art exhibit that anyone can enjoy. The other thing is, with how public this festival was, you saw a huge variety of different people, and it wasn't only publicized in Zagreb in Croatia. We saw posters for this in Sarajevo, in Bosnia, and in Ljubljana, in Slovenia. So really, like, they were trying to pull an international audience. One thing that one of my colleagues shared is that there's a lot of festivals that go on in Zagreb. They're kind of like going for that festival city tea. You know what I mean? They're really trying to center themselves as an artistic city, which I think is great. Art is so important for everyone. Like I said, I really do appreciate that Zagreb is creating a space where everyone can participate in art. There were two installations in particular that I found especially compelling and that really resonated with me. So I want to start off by discussing those two. If you're like here for the AI discourse, you can skip ahead to
21 minutes and 35 seconds.
and continue the video from there. But I really do want to highlight these artists because I think their work was just fantastic. The first piece I want to discuss is The Fragments by Slovakian artist Set a Minute. I'll start off by reading the description that the artist wrote for the festival. And while I'm reading that description, I'll intersplice some videos I took at the installation. A minimalist network of light rectangles shapes urban space through precise geometry and rhythm. Light fragments merge and separate, opening a view of the structures that shape space and our relationship to it. I think the last part about shaping space and our relationship to it is what particularly got my attention and made me really interested in this piece because it was set up in an urban park. And so normally I imagine most people stick to the paved walkway, but instead, people were going onto the grass, this field where these rectangles of light were all set up, and moving throughout the field in a very erratic way if the if the fixtures weren't there, you know? Like no one would be following these exact patterns. So already we're physically changing how people react to the space. So the children were like running through the different lights to try and chase the light, which is really cute, even though it was kind of like a Sisyphusian fantasy because the light was moving very quickly, which created this really interesting dynamic between natural and mechanical, because the light was ebbing and flowing in this very organic kind of way. It was creating this sense of like flow and pulse and energy, but then that would be contrasted by moments when the light would be very rigid in how it moved through the space, like very start and stop kind of. On top of that, you had this mechanical versus nature element with the location of it itself as a light installation within a park, but an urban park. So that park is within a larger city. So it kind of made you increasingly aware of the fact that you were in a city, but also in a park, which at least like coming from California, green spaces in big cities are not common at all. But in Zagreb, there were a number of parks throughout the city, which was quite beautiful. And so it was nice too that these installations were at these spaces that may not normally get as much foot traffic. And so it was bringing people to enjoy an evening in a park. I saw these light rectangles as some kind of passageway or mirror or door frame, something that resembled a gap between one space and another, whether that's like a gap you walk through or a gap that is completely separating the space, like in the case of a mirror. Unless you have some freaky magic powers, you cannot walk through a mirror. I think I wasn't the only one who thought these things because I saw people literally acting this way. As the kids were running through it, it helped to create that sense of these are passageways, as if the kids are like running through a hallway, following, chasing after a toy, something like that. I also saw people using the light as kind of a frame to take a picture. There were these two people in particular who were on either side of one of the light rectangles and were mirroring each other's movements, which I thought was really interesting, that we make meaning out of these rectangles. Like no one was like, hey, these rectangles should be treated like mirrors, by the way. It was just how we come to a space and interpret it. And so I thought that was really powerful in terms of how the artist created this reaction that was so strong for so many people who stopped by. And it really made me think about how we interact with spaces. It made me think, what if instead of rectangles, these were circles or triangles or a mix of different shapes? Like, would people still be trying to run through them or take pictures, like being framed by them? Or if the rectangles, instead of being like upright, were in a different orientation or like rotated or tilted, how would that change how people perceive the space? Would you still think of it as like some kind of slanted passageway? Or would you be like, these are very abstract shapes that I have no idea what to do with? It made me really appreciate the artist for being able to make me think about how I approach a space upon first entry. Now, when I go to a park, I'm probably going to be a lot more aware of like, where am I walking? Like, why am I walking on this walkway versus just going through the grass and following a random path? I'm going to take that with me, whenever I go to another park. And that kind of long lasting impact is so important in art. That's what makes art so meaningful and why human made art is so compelling and makes you feel something. I think a good piece of art should make you think, should make you ask questions, should make you leave the exhibit or installation or piece thinking, wow, I feel changed. Even if I'm not going to remember this specific piece for the rest of my life, like it's had some kind of small impact on me. There's just so much meaning to be made out of a simple and elegant design that makes you stop and think. And I love that. I love that for the fragments, quite frankly. So the second piece I want to talk about, hold up. Are you talking about the Greenhouse of Daily Bread? Because that is quite frankly my favorite piece of the whole exhibition, of the whole festival. I freaking loved this piece. Oh my God, it was so captivating, so invigorating. I don't know if I'm using that correctly, quite honestly. I can't stop thinking about it. It haunts my dreams. I have so many opinions. I have so many thoughts and so many things I want to share with you. So let's talk about The Greenhouse of Daily Bread by Klara Pavlichkova and Hanna Miobauer, a Czechia-based stage duo that specializes in lighting design and costume design and set design, I believe. Let me check my notes. Yes. Once again, I'll read you their description of the piece. A contemporary greenhouse inspired by Baroque chapels celebrates everyday gratitude and the gift of abundance. The space offers respite and contemplation, inviting you to experience a moment of deep presence that transforms an ordinary day into a celebration of life. I hope you are getting chills from this piece like I was. The installation features this small greenhouse, probably like 2.5 meters tall. I'm American, sorry about it, and I'm already bad at guessing height. So we'll go with 2.5 meters. This small greenhouse that is covered with this plastic sheeting that refracts the light that is shining from inside. It's this bright red neon. There's an opening at the front where you can actually walk in, and the ground is covered in mulch. And then there's a singular chair facing a screen with a scrolling text. The screen itself is covered by that same kind of plastic sheeting, which makes it a little difficult to read what the text actually says. But I'll put the original text and author on the screen as well. Morning glories shine best as I recite my morning prayers in the early light. The choices in the construction, it really made me stop and think for a while. I was standing by that installation for a good chunk of time. What originally struck me, and I think most people who walked by, probably the first thing they noticed was the glowing red neon lights, which were whoa, like, please, let's take a chill pill. Because it was so imposing and so bold, that you couldn't help but kind of like be a little scared. Maybe that's just me. But I think other people also felt like intimidated by it, because no one really got that close to it besides to go inside. I really appreciated this connection between greenhouses and chapels or religious spaces in general. You know, a greenhouse, a place where a seed is grown into a full mature plant, and then a chapel or a religious institution should be a place where people can grow their spirituality. And then adding the mulch underneath to just help to enforce that metaphor, with the chair kind of growing from the soil, as if to say, whoever's sitting here is the fruit of this greenhouse. Back to the lights, because the lights just keep coming back into my mind, because at first I was like, why red? That's bold, that's strong, that's like very striking, and like I said, dominating, almost like you feel put in your place. And then I was like, okay, yes, oftentimes greenhouses may use red lights to increase plant yield and plant size, but then also like there's still greenhouses with that don't use red lights, you know? So I think part of it was to create that sense of like fear, like a fear of God or a fear of a higher power. And because originally when I read that the description was, oh, inspired by Baroque chapels, Baroque where? Because my first thought, you know, I think Baroque, I think ornate, highly illustrious, like very decadent, opulent, like flexing the wealth of the church and the power of the church, as kind of like that anti-Reformation era. By reading the description, you would kind of expect that, but the greenhouse itself was very plain. You know, it just had these bright red lights and the scrolling text inside. And so I think that was kind of the tie-in to the Baroqueness, because as I was thinking about it more, I was like, okay, but part of the reason why they're flexing that power is to create this sense of fear for the people practicing Catholicism. Like, hey, you need the church because there's this overwhelming fear of God, right? And so I think in that way, they really did emulate the Baroqueness of it, that you did feel like the fear of God put into you, you know? The more I thought about it, I was like, okay, I can get on board with that. And that makes sense why this read. So then the next part that I was like, this don't make no goddamn sense to me. And I love that. I like when art doesn't make sense and it makes you think, because if it makes too much sense, then it's like boring. The text. Why was there the plastic sheeting over the screen that kind of blurred what the text was saying? So I don't know exactly what the artists were intending with it, or if they wanted that interpretation to be left up to the audience. But one thing that I noticed right away was I was having to focus so much harder to read the text, and it kind of made me a more active participant than if there was no covering, there was no barrier, and the text was just scrolling by. I had to work for it. I had to kind of, as I was reading it, grapple with the meaning, because I was trying to interpret what was actually being said. So in that way, I think it kind of encourages the audience to engage with the work more actively. But also, it could be a statement that technology may, for some people, get in the way of their spirituality. It could be a statement on how, if prayer is prescriptive, you don't necessarily mean what you say and you don't grow spiritually, versus if you're actively participating in prayer rather than just reading from a book. It could also be that like the divine is never fully comprehensible to the human mind, so you can only kind of get like a glimpse of what the divine is really, you know, and you never will fully understand. Honestly, the first reaction that I had, I kind of felt like it was a statement about indoctrination, which does not tie in to the artist's description of the piece at all. So I don't think that that's where the artists were going with it. But that was my first understanding, because if you're sitting in that chair, like, first of all, you kind of have to look up and like be leaning back, which is kind of uncomfortable to read the text. Then the text is has this barrier, and it's already kind of making it more difficult for you to read. And the way that the chair is, it like has sides to it, so you kind of feel stuck there. You know, it kind of feels like you're being forced to read this screen, and it's being imprinted into your mind like you're in a sci-fi horror surrounded by all of these super bright neon red lights. Like it's scary. Kind of one of the things that I was thinking is that it was a statement on how religion can be used as a tool for indoctrination. So with that, I could keep talking about this piece like literally all day. I don't know how long it's been, but you're seeing a much pared down version of like it's probably been an hour maybe now that I've just been yapping about these two pieces of art. I didn't even talk about the text that was scrolling on the screen, that poem. So I would really love to hear your thoughts. What do you make of the plastic covering the text? What do you make of the text in relation to the piece? I'll put the poem back up on the screen right now so you have a chance to reread it. And also, what do you think generally about that specific piece, or either of the pieces I've talked about? Those are the two pieces I really liked. They were my favorite pieces from the festival. I would go back just to see those pieces, honestly. Now on to some of the things that I didn't quite love about the Zagreb Festival of Lights. So here's the thing, is I have been and will continue to be vehemently against artificial intelligence used to generate content in artistic spaces. Of course, there are so many applications of AI that are important and that are life-saving, but art is not one of those things. Like, let's keep AI out of art, you know? Let's keep the art out of artificial. Yeah. This discussion is going to be very biased. Like, this is in no way a neutral discussion about AI use in art, because I don't think that's a thing. Beyond the like ethical concerns I have with using AI to generate things, I know on a philosophical level that AI generated content is an art. And so as I talk over my thoughts about the use of AI at the Festival of Lights, anytime that I say like AI art, I mean those quotes. Like, it is not art to me. I'm using the term art completely ironically, because it is AI generated content. It is media, but once you take the humanity out of art, it's not art anymore. That's what makes art is human perspective. There's no perspective behind AI generated content. Sure, someone put in a prompt, but the actual creating of the piece of media involved no human perspective, no thought, no care. Someone didn't actually create that. A machine used other examples of art and kind of synthesized what it thought you wanted. That isn't art to me, you know? And I don't think it should be art to anyone. Sorry. So that's where I'm coming from. The use of AI content at the Zagreb Festival of Lights is really disappointing and frustrating to me, and honestly made me kind of super upset and mad. First of all, you're legitimizing AI content alongside other real art and holding it to the same level of scrutiny, which is not appropriate. That just normalizes AI taking over artistic spaces that are already competitive enough between real artists, and that real artists should be having that platform. And with a international festival like the Zagreb Festival of Lights, like, come on, you're just doing a disservice to the artistic community. I also think it's deeply offensive to the real artists at the festival. Like, I mean, I don't know what the other artists think about the use of AI next to their work, but I would find that really rude, like, to be put on the same level as generated content that isn't even real art. Another concern I have too is that the AI generated content wasn't all labeled. Only one out of the at least five were labeled. The other four all were made by the same company. Interesting. Interesting. I'll get back to that in a moment. But and all of them were either projections or video installations that were like on screens. And they all also featured sound that was generated by AI, all these ambient sounds. And so it may seem like, okay, like that's really easy to fake with AI. And that's just so sad. That's just such a sad outlook to have, is like, oh, just because it's easier and cheaper, that's what I'm going to do because I don't care. Like, oh my God, why are you putting on a festival for art if you don't care? Right? Like, am I crazy? I feel crazy. But I did find that with the four installations, at least, that did not identify or label itself as using AI, they were all produced by the same company, FOL International from Germany. As soon as I left the Festival of Lights, I was like, I need to figure out what is going on here, because why is FOL International on all of these goddamn AI exhibits, and who are they? Who are these people? So it stands for Festival of Lights International, which actually is a producer of all of these more local Festival of Lights throughout the world. So it started in Berlin. They've been doing their Festival of Lights there since a certain date. I will correct myself. And then the one in Zagreb started in 2017. So this parent company kind of organizes, to my knowledge, all of these Festival of Lights. And so you may be like, why are they featuring their own art in the Festival of Lights instead of just like highlighting other artists? Sure. Okay. Great question. In fact, the partnered organizations or designers that they had listed on each of these exhibitions, they were either like major donors that were listed as sponsors on FOL's website, or I'm assuming they probably paid the company to do some kind of collaboration. But here's my thought. Is these companies approach FOL. All alleged, by the way, all alleged. This is purely what I think. But these companies go and approach FOL and are like, hey, I'm a 3D mapping or projection expert or a light designer, and I want to have something on my portfolio. Will you, FOL, create some content so that way I can use my technology and be able to further publicize my brand? And then FOL is like, period. We get some money from that. We also get to say like, ooh, we did our own little installation. And they want to save as much money as possible and don't want to actually live up to their mission and goals. On their website, it says sustainability is a guiding principle of their events. Right. Anyway, and then also they tout diversity. Like, we have such diverse artists. Okay. So here's why that's problematic. First, sustainability, my butt. What do you mean sustainability? You're using AI models, which notoriously are energy and resource wasteful, especially in their training. And so if you're using these tools, it's only going to incentivize the companies that produce those tools. If they just keep continuing to train models, that's just going to waste so much energy. And then diversity of artists. What do you mean diversity of artists if you're freaking using computers instead of artists? And also those computers that steal the work, mind you, of these so-called diverse artists that they want to claim. It literally said on their website that they support POC, people with a history of flight and migration, the LGBTQIA plus community, and people with disabilities as artists. You are literally profiting off of their exploitation because these AI models are taking the art of those artists without their consent, without their compensation. You cannot claim to support diverse artists. You do not have that right. You don't get to do that if you use AI to create media in artistic spaces. You're actually taking jobs away from those artists. Like reading that on their website actually made me do a double take. I was like, what? What? I feel delirious. Yeah, I hope they cut that shit out. But what I find so sinister about it is its impact on the target audience. By featuring bright colors and playful animated characters, you are, whether intentionally or not, directly orienting children toward AI content. Everything that these kids are experiencing isn't real art. It wasn't made by a person. And why I find this to be an issue is because that just normalizes the consumption of AI media for this generation of kids. Your taste in art is impacted by everything that you experience. So I'm really worried about how many kids are going to be impacted artistically from AI content. Like, how is that going to impact their ability to critically engage with art? Because that's the other thing too, is it feels so infantilizing. It really does, because all of these AI generated installations were so non-nuanced. They had no meaning. Like, oh, I'm gonna watch a sea turtle swim around. Okay, I'm gonna watch a bunny hopping around. And then the descriptions that they give have nothing to do with the art itself. Art. Like, do you think kids are dumb? like actually, do you actually think that children are that dumb that they can't engage with art, like real art? Like, come on. Kids are completely able to create their own artistic interpretations, and they should, because that is such an important part of like media literacy, is being able to see something, make meaning of it, engage with it critically, and think about, okay, why did I have this reaction to it? Why did I have this response? And you don't get that with AI content. There's nothing to engage with. Another reason why I think it's such a big deal for this festival specifically is because it's a free public art show. This may be one of the only times that kids from low income families get to experience art. It costs money to go to museums. It costs money to go to the theater, to go see an opera, to go to a ballet. It costs money to go see a movie. You have to pay to engage with real art, typically. So opportunities like this are crucial for exposing people from all backgrounds to art. And when you're platforming 25% of your festival with AI created content, now they're losing that opportunity. The festival is 25% less impactful. And then also, like, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I would see performances or movies or hear songs or see pieces of art that inspired me and made me go, wow, I want to be an artist. I want to be a singer. I want to be a performer. I want to do creative things. I don't know how a kid could see one of these AI generated videos and be like, oh, I want to do that. But even if they did and they realized it was AI, if you just type a prompt into a machine and you get something spit back out at you, you don't get the same satisfaction as like spending years of your life devoted to a craft, to improving, to working toward that one performance, that one piece, that one movie that you feel proud of. And nothing can top that feeling. And you'll never get that. Like, you'll never put in a prompt and be like, wow, this is the best thing ever. And if you do feel that way, I fear you have AI psychosis. Go see a psychologist. Oof. Let's all take a deep breath. Yeah. I think we needed that. And by we I mean me primarily. To round off the video, I want to go back to the two artists I highlighted at the beginning and talk about what I think were some of the elements of their art that were so impactful compared to the AI generated content that I saw. The first thing is that these installations were interactive. You could actually move through a space and interpret it from different angles. Your perspective was constantly shifting as you walked through it. And it allowed you to gain a deeper appreciation for the time that went into creating it. Also, these works left room for interpretation, and allowing the audience to decide how much they want to engage with a piece, I think is really important and gives the audience some kind of agency over their own experience. And so in a public art installation like the Festival of Lights, I think that's really important, especially if you have a target demographic of families and kids. The parents and the children can engage with the art at differing levels depending on where they are in their development. And so it allows everyone to experience a piece and make meaning of it. And everyone is going to bring their own perspective to that piece of art. So everyone's going to have a different feeling for what it meant to them and what it means in general. And last, like, these were actual pieces of art made by real artists with artistic ideas and an artistic vision. You don't get that with AI. AI doesn't have any person behind it. There's no perspective. There is no nuance. There is no passion. There is no meaning. There is no soul. There is no art with AI. Okay. So thank you for watching to the end of the video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of your month, rest of your life, baby. Yes. Please, for me, go outside. Yeah, if you can right now, get out of here. Go for a walk. Take a breath of fresh air. Look not at the sun, but look outside with some sunlight. Get that vitamin D. So, thank you. Enjoy. Bye. But wait, there's more. I don't really know how I'm going to end my videos. I want to do like a little fun little outro moment. So I'm thinking about doing what I've been listening to lately, just because I love music and I love talking about music. And I think it would be super fun. So lately I've been listening to the new Slater album, Worst Girl in America. Oh my God. Okay, can I be honest? Can I be vulnerable with you for a second? Upon first listen, I thought it was mid. I know. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Because here's the thing is I loved all of the singles, and to start with all 5 singles was a bold choice on Slater's part. These were songs that I already knew and loved and was jamming to. And because I had to download it, because I didn't have Wi-Fi when I was listening, I also was not able to look up the lyrics to the rest of the songs in the album. And I have a really hard time hearing lyrics when I'm listening to music. So I didn't really catch the lyrics for a lot of the back half and wasn't really feeling it. I'm sorry, I know. And then I listened to it more and more. And I've probably listened to it. I listen to it at least once a day. So it's been 7 days. And then honestly, most days I probably listen to it 3 or 4 times. So I've probably listened to the album at least 20 times by now. And I love it. I love it so much. I also like recently have started watching interviews about her album, and it just has changed my perspective so much. And going from Brittany Murphy at like the end of the album to it like starting over at Dance, I'm like chills. Like being in the mindset of Brittany Murphy of like this call for help and like last letter of sorts into Dance, and like the way that Dance starts, like it starts kind of hollow as the beat is building, and then you know, you just kind of have that lingering sense of like emptiness from Brittany Murphy. And I feel like it made me appreciate Slater's perspective so much more. And like I could kind of like get a glimpse into what it's like. I just really appreciate the album so much more that I've now that I've taken the time to fully engage with it and to be able to like look up the lyrics and watch some of her interviews. And so if you haven't listened to the album, I would recommend starting by having the lyrics up while you're listening to the album and reading alongside. Super helpful. I also found this new artist, Ho and Freddie, so whimsical, so quirky. I love it. I am living for it. Their album, I think it came out maybe in March, but I just found it like 2 days ago. And then still in the rotation, V Doja Cat. I know you may have your feelings about Doja Cat. I have my feelings about Doja Cat. You cannot tell me that her music is not amazing. It has almost Planet Her vibes to me. Not like that the albums are like super similar in the style, but just like the feeling I get listening to it, it creates like this sense of nostalgia. You know, Doja Cat has always kind of like had this nostalgic sound, which I love, and it's just poppy and fun. But yeah, so those are some of the things I've been listening to. What have you been listening to? And if you want me to do a full video on the Slater album, I will gladly. Well, that's the video. Peace.